Welcome back. And so we start off our first conversation, the concern on corruption, concerns over corruption and how it may impact democracy. And joining us on this particular conversation is Dr. Ayodeji Abdul Rauf, the president of NASFAT, public analyst and social commentator. He's a founder, CEO, Think Startup Beyond Borders Incorporated, and he's right here in our Lagos studio. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
And thank you for your patience. We also have joining us Mr. Chetam Mwala. He is a legal practitioner, and he joins us virtually from Port Harcourt. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mwala.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Oh, brilliant. We can hear you loud and clear. I'm going to start from our Lagos studio, and, you know, since we're talking about corruption, it's just right that we look at the polls released recently by the NOI, in which it's reported that many Nigerians still perceive our institutions as corrupt. And, you know, some of the institutions in the forefront of that list is the Nigeria Police. In fact, the presidency also features. Now, what are your concerns about this as it relates to the efforts of this administration in the fight against corruption? I'm going to start with you, sir.
Yep, thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate this viewpoint for me to really educate Nigerians and the world in general about what is happening in terms of corruption. First, the word corruption is nothing but deficiency of integrity. And if you look at the beginning of even our country, Nigeria, what we've got from beginnings of governance, even when we have colonial, no matter what, that deficiency of integrity also affected certain foundations later at that beginning. And then when we took over in 1960, and when we have the First Republic in 1963, we know how those that governed that time and how the institutions are being operated. If you don't separate institution from governance, in such a way that institutions can run on their own without the influence of Mr. President or Mr. Governor or whoever is in charge of the government, there's always this crisis of integrity deficiency, which is corruption. So in Nigeria today, here what World Bank give us in analysis, here Nigeria paid $3.4 billion back. But they're saying, yeah, our economy is growing, but prices of things are high. There's nothing making that, you know, so pronounced than this corruption thing. You know, if you have an institution whereby the cost of doing business, cost of running your, getting your certification, cost of doing most of the things that you need to do to support your production are so high, then definitely there will be high costs in prices and services. So these are also related. So if the institutions are not governed by integrity, if you have institutions like NNPC, the Nigerian Police Force, Nigerian Army Force, you are talking about the issue of insecurity. What is in there? It's nothing but deficiency of integrity. Are the people doing things for people? Are they doing it for Nigeria, and they're doing it for themselves? When people have to guide an institution in such a way that they are thinking of amassing so much wealth, and definitely the institution will suffer, and the public will also suffer. That's what I see as the basis of. And even the so-called United Nations, if you go back to, I think the lawyer is there that will be able to define what we see in there, define what they call corruption. They couldn't define it. They always put it in terms of what is happening in that environment. What you may call corruptions in your country A may not be the same corruption in country B. This is an unfair thing. The masses are really suffering. The populace are the ones that are going to suffer for it. Let's have a definition of what corruption is. See what is happening in Gabon. Because we have somebody that understands that the masses have to be protected. Any government that cannot protect the masses, that cannot center their governance principle, their policies on the people, they are bound to fail based on corruption.
It seems as though that age-long argument over, you know, the lack of consensus on what corruption is featuring. Yes. But in this report, it is said that Nigerians perceive that, you know, you cannot get something done in institutions without some form of inducement. Okay. So let me take it to Mr. Mwala now. I wonder what thoughts that you have that may be contrary or in alignment with what Mr. Abdul Fattah said in our studios today. But really, speak to that poll and its impact on institutional development, well, development generally in the country.
Once again, thank you for having me. I must say clearly that, over the years, the conversation, successive government have had this conversation on corruption, the fight against corruption and all that. Even before I was born, the conversation has been there, and it has been a Nigerian theme now. Yet, we seem not to be winning the war against corruption, and we seem to be plunged into these corrupt practices. Now, we have now found ourselves in a situation where everybody is looking for an opportunity to have a bite of the system. Now, corruption itself, it's not just, I don't think it's just an institutional thing. It goes beyond the institution down to our individual character. I used to say this, that we as Nigerians, we seem to have this individual bad character that has translated into the Nigerian system we find today. And this has actually bedeviled our system, our institution. And of course, let me say this, in some ministries and some parastatals, you also find that it is even the staffs of these ministries and parastatals that teach the politicians who come how to be corrupt and how to make money from the particular system. So this goes down to our individual character at home, from the family system down to the churches, down to different aspects of our lives, our societal life generally. So we need to, first of all, deal with our individual character and individual behavior. Another problem we have about this issue of corruption is the continuous emphasis of the get-rich syndrome. People want to make money, people want to become billionaires in their 20s and in their 19s or in their teens and all that. People want to make so much money within this particular period. And now, this only creates for desperation within the society, within the system. And what do you have? You have people cutting corners, trying to make ends meet or trying to make more money than is actually required. Now, due to this consistent fight against corruption and we not winning the war, the public has lost trust for government's fight against corruption. Because government in itself, or government officials themselves, have not also shown clear-cut sincerity on the fight against corruption. That you now see that the corruption has also moved from government institutions down to organizations, down to different organizations and different professional bodies. You now see that people contest for offices within the professional bodies just to also steal from the coffers of these people. And one of the problems we have majorly is the issue of accountability. Nobody is held accountable for their actions. People do things, get away with it, and so far as you can also share the loot with the people. You have been applauded, you have been celebrated. So nobody sees anything wrong with it. That is the kind of society we have found ourselves. So a man becomes president or a man becomes a minister. As a matter of fact, today, if you do not steal as a public officer, your people would actually blame you and will call you not to be wise. They will say you're not a wise person, that you went there and wasted the number of years you have spent in office or whatever it is, and today you are broke and you're poor. Because the system feels that everybody who occupies a public office is an avenue to steal. And we do not also have system checkmating it, because the anti-graft agencies we have are themselves corrupt. They are themselves corrupt. And you see how they handle corruption cases. Look at the EFCC, for example, how they handle corruption cases. How once you are powerful, once you are rich, you are not corrupt. They tend to treat you differently and deal with your issues differently. Let me inform you, as of today, a petition below a petition below 30 million naira into the EFCC would not be treated for the next how many months? If you take a corrupt case that has below 30 million naira, the EFCC will not take any priority on it, unless it is a high-profile case of that particular magnitude. These are the kind of system we are running today. And yes, it's not also helping matters. They are only after I wouldn't say it's a small crime, being the issue of internet fraudsters, whom they are now focused on. And you also discover that even the police themselves are also involved. The police themselves are involved. The DSS are also involved. You cannot remove corruption from the system. But if we must deal with the issue of corruption, we must look at ourselves and tell ourselves the truth. That first of all, we must deal with our individual bad characters, because every Nigerian is looking for to undo the other to make more money from the system.
Ms. Ayodeji, Ms. Anwar has painted a very I don't even know how to call the picture it's painted. Like, it's saying, look, we're on a path of no return. Like, we've gone too far, there's no... But I know things can change.
Things can change.
There's a possibility.
Yeah,
but that is just optimism. That may just be a political rhetoric.
Yeah.
In terms of practicals, in practical terms, where do we start from? If every institution, without exception, is suffering from the crisis of confidence in that sense because of corruption, from the presidency to the judiciary to the police to the military, to call any institution in Nigeria, INEC, in fact, we now have to be comparing which is worse than the other in that sense. When you see this kind of picture and you're called to say, where do we start from? Where should we really start from? Because if, depending on the political class, maybe a tall order. So if we excuse them for a moment, because they are not reverend fathers and priests, so piety is out of the question and morality may be thrown out of the window, not for all of them, we must say, but for a couple of them, where do we start from?
There's no way you can define a community without the people in that community. What kind of people, what quality of people do you have in a society? We are not this bad. At the beginning, we have sanity in the system, whereby the home front, which is the beginning, we have people in charge of the home, the fathers and the mother, the uncles, the cousins, and all sorts. And they ensure that value, in the Yoruba palace that they call Omoluabi, whereby you must account for whatever you have. You must be able to also protect the sanity and the integrity of your family, wherever you come from. First, that have been lost. So the home front will have been our hope. But what we need now is nothing but a drastic leader. There's nothing that is not changeable. See what is happening in Ghana now. The man has run before for 4 years, but he came back and now said, if you want to get my appointment, you got to declare your asset. We've done the worst in the past. But there must be a leader that will be set out to want to change the path, that I want to change the paradigm, no matter what. In the military era, yes, we could be writing another stories about the whole thing. When Buhari and Idi Agbon came in, there was some sort of order. People start to put discipline, and people got fears of even doing certain things in their various offices. So, to me, with the way we have gone, we are so worst. And like I said, the family, which is the root of all these things, is already failing. I don't think we're doing normal parenting again. Because if you are not doing good parenting at that level, the product of that level are the one that will enter the system. Are you saying, Mr. Ayodeji, that we, our generation, my generation, your generation, we're already a lost cause? Well, to me, that's because the parenting, which is the root of bringing the best for the society, we've lost it. Unless if we can readdress that parenting. Because how do some of us come out of it? You see the kind of parenting we got that our children are getting today in terms of attention, in terms of close marking. Most of the things your children are doing most times now is on social media, whereas you are busy pursuing how to. And it's because the system is already disrupted. Because the system provides certain things that you are struggling to provide today. You have to provide your electricity. You have to look for the way to take care of your children and pay high school fee because you want them to be in the best school. These are pressure on you, and that is already causing a lacunas in the parenting aspect of it, which will give us the best to run the society. But it's not that bad. The leader, we could have a courageous leader that is ready to dare and give his life out for people. And that's the only thing that could curb that corruption system. When we have a leader in the country that says, yeah, I want to give out, sacrifice my life, and face whatever be the vices of these corruptions. And that's what's happening in Ghana now. You see, Mama, he has run for 4 years, he came back and he said, hey, enough of all the... I've been able to meet one top-notch in this country, one of the who is who, a northerner. And he said, he looked at the whole of them. He said that they've held a meeting sometimes, top Nigerians, and said, enough of this stealing, enough of all this money we are taking every time. Can't we just redress for one and sit and give Nigerians the best? So what we need is a leader that will just be courageous and call his colleagues. They know there's nobody that will be emerge as leader in Nigeria without some consensus of some input from those top class.
So basically everything rises and falls on leadership.
On leadership.
And I know Mr. Nwala had spoken about how, you know, some will say to some of these politicians or people in government that if you don't steal or if you don't have something to show for it, then you're a failure. So as much as everything rises and falls on leadership, perhaps...
It falls on the followership too.
There's also, obviously, there's also a big role.
Because their own demand...
Absolutely, for followers to play.
You know.
So, Mr. Nwala, since we're talking about the anti-corruption agencies, you talked about the EFCC, and it leaves a very bad taste in the mouth if you hear that cases that don't seem prominent enough, if it's not up to 30 million naira, it wouldn't get a lot of attention. Again, some may argue that away. They'll say the bigger the money, the bigger the impact on society. So maybe the resources will flow to where there's bigger money missing. But I want you to speak to this, I don't know, the debate now. So EFCC has been doing a lot of work on the Naira abuse and all of that. So it started and a lot of people said, come on, why are you wasting time on this? Even though it's in the law, right? But there are bigger issues, bigger fish to fry here again. So people are saying divert the resources to bigger issues, not these seemingly smaller ones. Anyway, so they picked up a few people. And now we see Tompolo's video where people were spraying him Naira. And people say, well, if you have picked the, in quotes, smaller ones, you have to go for him. So EFCC put out a statement and said, nobody's above the law. Now people are saying, well, why are you still wasting time on... how do we approach this fight against corruption? Because people see grand corruption. They say, go for it, leave the small fry. But people say, well, it's an all of society approach. So how do we really approach this fight against corruption?
First of all, I must say this. Well, I must be very blunt about the FCC. You know, to me, the FCC is a paper tiger, and one organization as of today that Nigerians have lost trust in. And if you agree with me, the FCC is one organization that they just make so much noise without having any. Without having the necessary impact. I also think that the Nigerian government is wasting so much money on the EFCC because if you ask yourself every year, how many convictions do we get from the EFCC, from the corruption cases they take to court and all that? At the end of the day, they go on plea bargaining with these persons and free these persons of corrupt practices. We have seen this happen on several occasions, and there are several matters to that particular effect. The EFCC has not lived up to the expectation that Nigerians expect them to live up to. What they do is they go for persons that they feel that they can hold. While people like Yaya Bello, why do we have people like Yaya Bello walking freely on our streets? We have lots of former governors who, the moment they defect to the APC, they are now exonerated from corruption and from corrupt practices. Look at, of course, Okowa, the former governor of Delta State. And when you ask yourself, see, corruption is corruption. Whether it is 1 naira, whether it is 2 naira, so far as the person is corrupt, so far as the person has stolen, the person should be prosecuted for corruption. Nobody should be exonerated for corruption. And one of the things we don't also do in this part of the world is that we don't even question people's source of income. We don't ask the source of income of people. Look at the Minister of the FCT driving a Rolls Royce. 2025 or 2024 Rolls Royce. You ask yourself, where did you get money to get this Rolls Royce? People's source of wealth are not being questioned, especially people at that particular level. So far as you are a part and parcel of the government, you are exonerated from this corruption. So first of all, let me also say this, that we cannot totally deal with the issue of leadership without looking at the issue of followership, because our leaders do not fall from sky.
Right.
Mr.
Nwala, pardon me to come in quickly in the interest of balance again, so that I'll put all of the data out there. I recall that the EFCC, just in the first year of the current chairman's tenure, put out data on the recoveries and the convictions made in the interest of balance. So you'd see that total, according to the FCC, 248 billion naira, $105 million, 53,000 pounds, euros, and all of that. And in terms of convictions, in that 1 year under review, as at last year, I think October or September, a total of 3,455 convictions were recorded in that year under review. So in the interest of balance, when you say that nothing has been done, that is the data the EFCC has put out. But you can go ahead, Mr. Nwala.
data does not work in Nigeria. You know, we just play to the gallery always, and we don't tell ourselves the truth. Anybody can come up with whatever data and claim whatever he's claiming. And
so do you have alternative data? Do you have any data that says that is not true?
See, let me tell you, when you see an organization that is working, if the EFCC starts working, trust me, you don't even need statistics to see it. Just like when we make so much noise about a change in our economy and improve life. Meanwhile, the market woman on the street, her life is not being changed by the improvement in our economy. Then how then has our economy changed or improved in the circumstance? So when we talk about this issue of corruption and they come up with all these statistics do not work in this country. And we all know that. We all they usually bring out these statistics just to for the purposes of photo ops, if I would use that word, just to flash something on our faces to make us feel that they are working. But let's be honest. Of course, you can't take out the fact that there are no convictions. There are convictions. But what we are saying is that the EFCC is supposed to be up and doing, and the EFCC is now concentrating their effort on people they think are less powerful within our society. And this EFCC itself has to purge itself of corruption. It has to purge itself of corruption, because we keep saying this, and we keep looking at the anti-graft agency is supposed to be up and doing than what they are doing currently today. And let me say this: see, we have to progress as a nation. We have to progress beyond these issues that we have always tied ourselves towards, trying to make the whole world believe that we're actually doing something on corruption. When we look at the system itself, the system is terribly corrupt. Look at the police. Look at the DSS. And you ask yourself, one of the problems we have that also leads to corruption is our inability to follow the laws. There are laid down rules and regulations in this country. You ask yourself, how many persons follow these laid down rules and regulations? In short, I have described the Nigerian situation as to be an anyhowness. Everybody does whatever they can do, so far as you have someone within the system that can protect you. And so far as you are being protected, so you don't also care, you do whatever you want to do. The police wakes up in the morning, arrests anybody they want to arrest, keeps the person under detention for how many months without taking the person to court for whatever purposes. And you ask yourself, what kind of system and what kind of country are we? As I speak to you today, we have Comrade Lebosi Bambada under the DSS detention for the past 1 month. He has been under DSS detention for the past 1 month. He has never been taken to court. There is no court order keeping him in DSS detention up to today. Yet we have these situations. And nobody's talking about it. And you say you're dealing with corruption? Corruption is not just financial. Let's not forget that.
Mr. Nwala, you know, one can hardly, you know, argue with you or frown on your agitation, which every Nigerian pretty much feels, you know, passionate about. But we must, you know, try to, as much as possible, you know, have some optimism that things can be better. But the situation is dire, and it is that dire part that I want to explore yet again. But I'll bring you to the studio this time around. Again, Dr. Adedia referred to that report, and it supports your earlier commentary about you know, Nigerians being participators in corruption. The poll notes that 67% of Nigerians paid bribe to receive police assistance in 2024. While in the same year, 56% paid bribe for identity document, 53% paid bribe to avoid problem with the police, while 26% paid bribe for medical care. Even
imagine medical care.
And you know,
and nothing on education.
It's not a lack of institutions to fight corruption that is the problem. There's the EFCC, there's the ICPC. There is, in fact, the NFIU that was established much later on than the other institutions, you know, to check corruption in the civil service. It seems pretty much like a catch-22 situation. But how do Nigerians themselves review their roles in participating, albeit passively, in corruption?
I think, like I've said earlier, we first need more moral reawakening for people to start getting the value. Because one thing, Nigerians have lost values. Because there's no way, if you have lost value, you can't fight corruption. Because so far I can pay for anything. This is a system where I come and I can pay for anything. Even, I mean, there's nobody that'll tell me I can't pay your price. So the followers have a large portion of the problem, in the sense that, for example, you have a legislator in your constituency, and that legislator is meant to be doing certain things that is meant to be done by the executive arms of government. then you put in pressure on him. And that's what led to the sudden influence of constituency project by most of our legislators now. They want to be part of that project, which it shouldn't be. That means every state House of Assembly too should be part of the project the governance is doing in every constituency in that state. And it's the pressure of the followers. The citizen, they always put pressure on people that are representing them. Everybody believes it's your turn to take part of it. See what is happening in the Lagos State local government selections, just primary. And you can see the number of people that were able to pay 5.5 million for the local government chairmanship. And how many of them are going to come alive to be part of it? Are they going to use proper criteria in the selections of these people? If they are using proper criteria, it will be so tough for some people to even say they want to buy the form. It's because some people have probably guaranteed you're going to be there, go and pick the form. I'm going to use it to negotiate for something. And that's the way the system runs. And the same thing applies in every community, even home. You were talking about failures of JAMB and WAEC the other time. What parents are doing these days, they can buy exams for their children. They didn't do that for us. We're talking about lecturer failing. No, if you fail, you got to go back and do it and pass. Nobody's going to influence anything. But we've seen parents, you know, the time that we have special centers, parents will be the one to pay money to make sure their children go to the special center. So it's a community, it's a systemic thing, the issue of corruptions. And for us to get out of it, is that we decide at the home front to train our children so that those entering the system will be the perfect one that will know the values and hold their values so that they can protect that value when they are in the system. And they will continue to say, no, this is not part of my family ethics, this is not our value, and we're going to fight it. And we'll get a leader that will be courageous enough to face the nation and ready to die for anything, not somebody that is ready to accumulate another wealth for so many years that you're not going to spend on their accumulating wealth for children's coming. But the most important thing, you know, that is always critical to me is our churches and mosques, where we're supposed to probably preach that sanity. And then you see people turning to become another institutions where everybody is dreaming to go to be. You know, some people would like to be GO of some churches today because of the kind of opulence life that the pastor lives. Some people would like to be chief imams of a particular mosque because of the opulence that the people there live. So that one too also called, because that's where the majority converge at the end of the day. People come to pay their tithes. Do you check where the money for the tithes come from? You see what churches are building all across all our nation? You see what mosques are building across? So where are this money coming from? Is it from the same stolen money? Then there's imbalance in the whole system. We need a leader, or we'll go back to our foundation to get things, redo moral reawakening, and get things.
Let's take Ms. Anwala, you just have a minute. I would like you to speak to the issue of the judiciary, because that's our last guardrail.
That's even critical. I want to ask him before.
Yeah, Ms. Anwala, let's.
Hating corruption.
So let's. Well, that's a strong allegation. Ms. Anwala, I'd like you to speak to, because we're seeing some signals from the judiciary in terms of reprimand. But although a lot more people expect a lot more from them because of what people see or perceive to be endemic corruption within our judicial system. So I'd like you to speak to that. And if you want to highlight as well the issue of politicians, now they are introducing their children to public funds and exposing all of that. So that's why I don't even want to go to politicians in that sense. So let's talk to the last guardrail in this particular issue. 1 minute you have, sir.
The issue of judiciary, sometimes I usually say that it is difficult to even hold yourself out as a lawyer these days, because the judiciary itself, it's something else in this country. And I must say that when the judiciary is naturally supposed to be the last above the common man, but you see the judiciary, especially in this present administration, is now an arm of the executive, it's now a part of the executive and a part of the corrupt system we're actually facing today. I must say that we have talked about judicial reforms. It's not working. It's not working, because judiciary in itself, it needs a total overhaul. A total overhaul with what is happening in our judiciary. I tell you, the corrupt practices in our judiciary today, it needs a complete overhaul. Because judiciary, naturally, people have trust for the judiciary. As of today, Nigerians no longer trust the judiciary because the judiciary is now part and parcel of our problems. And let me say this, you have judges compromising. It is not. You have judges, and we also saw recently the discipline of some Court of Appeal judges as well as High Court judges by the NJC. And it tells you the type of system. This is just a few out of how many of them we have seen. And you ask, what steps are they taking to deal with this particular corruption within the judiciary? Now, clients have even known that the judiciary is so corrupt, and they are telling you that, oh, look for a lawyer, a judge that collects money. And when you hear such a thing, it tickles the ears. And you ask yourself, what kind of system are we running? That clients are now confident that we have to bribe the judge to get justice or to get judgment in our favor. And of course, let me tell you, politicians have also helped to destroy our judiciary. They've actually made the judiciary a second arm of their political parties. And not only that, they have also made sure that the family members, their wives, their children, are now judges within our system. And this has also further helped to corrupt our system. Look at the Senator Bokachara, the former Senator Bokachara, who also openly stated in the Senate floor that he through his colleagues through him, got assistance from his wife, who was then president of the Court of Appeal. And he said, what kind of system is this? Until today, nobody has investigated him, nobody has questioned him, and we are running like nothing is happening. No accountability from any part or from any point. And everybody is excited.
All right, Mr. Wala, the resounding point from this conversation is that everyone has a role to play at the institutional level, at the government level, and in fact for Nigerians as well. And we must anchor at this point, and thank you very much. We've been talking with Mr. Chetam Wala, a legal practitioner who joined us from Port Harcourt virtually. And right here in our Lagos studio, Dr. Ayodeji Abdurrafat is the president of NASFAT, social commentator, and founder CEO Think Startup Beyond Borders. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
That's Dr. Abdurrauf.
Dr. Ayodeji Abdurrauf. Yeah, thank you very much for your time. And so from here, we'll go to another equally interesting conversation. So stay with us, we'll be right back.